fall takes a piece out of our hearts. So I'll run away, away into the darkest parts of me. I need a change desperately. I thought love was a lost art till you showed me some sanctuary. Now I never wanna let you go, never gonna let you go until we're both old souls running out for love. You were there with open arms when I thought love was a lost art. Empty halls, running with my eyes shut. If I fall, I'm not sure I can get
Hello and good evening from Amsterdam. Welcome to DEPT Trends 2025. The future belongs to the impatient. My name is Ali. I'm head of the UK and Ireland, and I'm also SVP of Growth here at DEPT, and I have the privilege of being your host today. And today is about saying goodbye to 2024 and looking back at what we achieved, and also looking forward to 2025. So 2024, a year where we leapt forward in terms of technology, but we also found ourselves craving human connection. A year where AI hit the mainstream, no longer a buzzword reserved for talks like this or panels on innovation, but actually powering some of the world's biggest companies and smart homes. But also, on the flip side of that, a year where we felt like we were craving human connections in real life experiences. And we almost found a nostalgia for a time before AI and before smartphones. And that nostalgia, probably not better embodied than Charli XCX's Brat Summer. We couldn't have a trend event without talking about Charli XCX's Brat Summer. It was Colin Dictionary's word of the year this year, and it's already over. So there you go. That shows how quickly trends move. But it also shows the power of celebrity. And in 2024, fandoms and celebrities, they reigned supreme. They were the tastemakers of the year. Whether or not you were one of the very lucky, I wasn't one of them, 4 million people that got to see Taylor Swift on her Epic Eras tour, or you're one of the 30 million people that play Fortnite every single day. Really, culture was driven by these fandoms and these celebrities. And it's no wonder that brands wanted to get on board. The tricky thing with celebrity and with these fandoms is that the higher the pedestal, the further you've got to fall when it all goes wrong. And inevitably, it does go wrong. And that was particularly tricky in 2024 because we found that everything got a little bit political. 40% of the world's population went to the polls in 2024. That's pretty unprecedented. And what's potentially more telling is that of those people that went to the polls, they voted for change. In every developed nation that voted in 2024, the incumbent party actually lost vote share. So what does that mean for us looking at the end of 2024? Well, change is happening, and we should expect more of it into 2025. One thing which didn't change was our love for the Olympics. It was a real uniting force over the summer. Whether or not you enjoyed watching Simone Biles prove to us why she truly is the greatest of all time, or if you, like me, just loved watching the weird and wonderful friendship that Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart brought to the Olympics. I don't know where the connection was, but I loved it, especially on the equestrian events. The one thing which we definitely saw in 2024 Olympics was that it wasn't just the journalists who were writing the stories of the games. It was the internet co-writing those stories too. So we didn't just see Simone Biles and Snoop Dogg. We also saw the Turkish sharpshooter and Australian breakdancers go viral too. And looking forward, Generation Alpha, Gen Alpha have arrived. The world's first AI native generation. They have arrived on our social feeds and also with their wallets. They are spending their parents' money maybe on things like Stanley Cups and skincare, which I find slightly alarming, but anyway. So that was a very brief look back at 2024. Now let's look forward to the session today, but also to 2025. We're going to cover 5 key topics today. The first is how we stop talking about AI as hype, so saying, yeah, we've done AI, to actually how it's driving impact for businesses. We're then going to talk about how AI can move into the creative space to ignite creativity. We then move on to TikTok and social feeds and how brands can claim space in those trending topics without, frankly, ruining the party. We'll then move on to the new era of commerce and how brands are leaning into that. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly, we'll talk about how businesses can be agile and move quickly, but also never compromise on ethics. And how do you bring those two things together? But before we dive into those topics, just wanted to cover some of the themes which we'll be seeing today. The first is a move on from seeing AI purely as a cost-cutting exercise and a way to create more content more quickly. Really, we see that that's probably only scratching the surface of what AI can deliver for us. And 2025 will be about how we rethink our businesses with AI. This quote from Jamie Allen at NVIDIA I found quite compelling. He says, "We've been comfortable with long transformation processes, but with AI and the speed of computing accelerating, those long cycles are becoming obsolete. Other companies will move faster." So ambitious companies who lean in, they will move fast. And these year-long digital transformations, those timelines will be shortened. And what that means for us is that what might look groundbreaking today will, I think, become the new normal pretty soon. This is a good example of where I think that will happen. So the campaign that you see on the screen today, that was delivered pretty much solely using generative AI, from the 3D model of the car to all of the backgrounds. And I mean, that's pretty incredible. We couldn't have delivered a campaign like that a year ago. But I think this will probably become the new normal moving into the years ahead. But what does that mean for creativity? Well, what it doesn't mean is that we're replacing creatives. I think that's really, really important to note. Instead, I think what AI is doing in the years to come, and I think you'll see in some of the talks today, is that AI is giving creatives superpowers. It's enabling them to build their worlds, which they have built in their minds, and show that to stakeholders like you and I. And we know that AI also won't replace brand connections. AI won't tell you that somebody ironing a shirt on a surfboard in the Mediterranean will drive brand salience, drive credibility, luxury notes, but actually that's what Jacques Mousse is doing to great effect. We'll also see that brands that foster genuine communities will stand out and they will win. And that's not just on social trends, it's also through kind of, I suppose, audience insights. If anybody has run a marathon, a half marathon, frankly, even if they woke up yesterday, did a 5K, and then went down some steps today, you will know how it feels to walk down steps after your run. And that's exactly what Nike tapped into, a real human truth. So all the way from Nike's example here to the weird, wonderful, always referenced Duolingo. What we'll see into next year is that we'll collaborate much more with creators when doing these things, because 71% of consumers trust creator recommendations. We also need to be where our consumers are looking for us, and that is changing. So we expect that traditional search volume will drop by about 25% as we move into 2026. So we need to make sure that we are where our customers are looking for us, whether or not that's new search engines like Perplexity or AI-enabled solutions on the likes of Google. And then finally, we need to make sure that we're driving ethical change. So innovation needs to be paired with ethical points of view, and we need to make sure that we're doing that throughout all of our work. So that's it from me to introduce today's session. I'm really excited to pass on to Bob and Bridget first, who are going to be talking to us about how we move past the hype and through to impact in AI.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for that intro, Ali. And I believe that music is a direct feed from my brain every day as I try to keep up with what's going on in AI. It might have been easier for us to talk about what hasn't happened in AI this year rather than what has happened. But Bob, I'll also introduce Bob.
Hi. Bob here. I think one of the things that hasn't happened is AGI, but it really feels like almost everything else has happened. Our trend report covers 11 specific AI trends, but Bridget and I are just going to hone in on 5 for you today.
Great. And the first one we are going to talk about, it's fitting that it's the first. I mean, when we start talking about data, maybe your mind gets that buzz that mine used to in chemistry classes. But really, even though data may be the unsexy trend, the boring but important trend, it's how we start every project. We're seeing 75% of brands are increasing their investment in data as part of Gen AI projects. 41% are not sure they're ready. Every AI project inevitably starts as a data project. We see it as the sourdough starter. But Bob, I guess my question for you, for those 60% that don't feel ready, where would you point them?
So I think it's, I know that data is often described as boring. I've been doing it for a long time. I'm used to it. I think the one really nice thing that the 60% of the people are getting right is people are finally starting to concentrate on it, because everyone's deciding or seeing that data is really going to be the differentiator when using AI to drive value for your business. And so I know we're supposed to be hyping AI today, but if I had only one project to do this year, it would be to modernize data infrastructure, get all that data in one place, get it ready for AI, because it's going to be the thing that differentiates companies that are doing proofs of concept from those that are actually delivering real results with this new technology.
Absolutely. And speaking of real results, I know Ali bemoaned the fact that she did not make it to Taylor Swift. I do not mean to rub this in and quote Taylor Swift, but we've seen this movie before. I think I've seen this movie before 3 times in the past 2 decades, where when a new technology comes along, brands think, this is it. We're going to hold on to this. This is going to raise us above all competitors. This is going to differentiate us. Spoiler alert, what we are seeing is with the adoption of AI, all brands are going to have efficiency of scale. All brands are going to have deeper insights. So then what do? You still have to differentiate with the basics. Know your brand purpose, know your customer. And that's why I think we see Starbucks struggling right now. They have huge AI adoption. What they've lost is a sense of who they are and who their customer is.
Yeah, and I really, on the flip side of this, it's we can talk about the unique aspects of this democratization that we're seeing. It's really the destroyer of a lot of the competitive moats that we've grown accustomed to over the past 10 or 20 years. I think generative AI is really the big reason that a company like Perplexity, which is tiny, can really take Google on and deliver a product that is actually differentiated, but in the same kind of market as Google, where you're thinking like Google has this huge scale, but Perplexity is really able to win just with its own kind of internal dedication, its ideas, and its people. And I think that's really exciting that now these smaller companies can take on these big incumbents with just their ideas and the people and kind of the real drive to be better. I think one of the other things we've been talking about for years is this dream of hyper-personalization for marketing. In fact, it's always disappointing. It's always disappointing when I buy something like a pair of skis and the next recommended products are 4 additional pairs of skis. I don't want 4 more pairs of skis. I want something else. And so this ability to really understand the product and recommend something that I'm actually going to want, and the ability to scale out the content to create those different messages is something that I really think is going to change this market and marketing over the next couple of years.
100% agree. I think for a time, brands might have had the insights, but they just didn't have the way to create that content at scale that they needed for personalization. And I really think what Jet, a DEPT client, has done with creating tens of thousands of assets monthly to deliver that personalization at scale is key. And I think it brings across a question too of, if everybody is going to experience a different expression of a brand, if every piece of content created is, if this content is just for me and nobody else sees the same content, brands become infinite in a sense, in their sense of expression. Nobody's quite seen it the same way. We also talked just a little bit earlier about perplexity. And looping back to that, one thing we've seen a lot of this year is working with clients on how are they going to better show up in a zero-click world. And maybe we could ask Gemini this question, but Bob, where do you think we should focus in on when we're not surfacing links right away, when there's AI summaries at top? How do brands show up in this world?
Yeah, we're working really hard on this one. Like SEO is cool again. It's kind of like it was 10, 15 years ago. And we're working on tools that really help understand what the search engines are going to bring to the top, how they're going to answer certain questions so that our clients can be there at the forefront and start to stand out. Search is kind of being thrown for a loop right now, and it's really important to stay current on a lot of this stuff so that you can come out on top.
Right. And I think, I think this example of search is familiar with everybody on this call because it's such an example of how we've already embraced AI in our everyday life as consumers and also workers. So when we talk about AI in the workplace, it's already here. Folks are already using AI for their jobs, whether their employers like it or not, and whether their employers know it or not. And so now we have to move from these discrete use cases of folks using AI to do their job better, to actually integrating it throughout the organization to create a culture of collaboration, to create a culture of togetherness and connection again. And what do you think about that, Bob?
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm really optimistic about this. I think there was a ton of doom and gloom at the beginning when AI first came out about maybe jobs disappearing. And I'm just not seeing that at all with our colleagues at DEPT really finding new tools and methods every day using generative AI and there's a real enthusiasm kind of driving that instinct to find new things and do really interesting things with this new technology. That's our time. That's a wrap for these 5 seemingly different trends. But there's an important undercurrent that'll come to light more in 2025.
Yeah, and I think that undercurrent is we have these 2 fish in a fishbowl here. And really quickly, that's a story from David Foster Wallace, where 2 fish are swimming in a river and an older fish swims by and says, "How's the water?" And they swim on for a little bit, and the other one turns to the other and says, "What is water?" And that's where we want to end up with AI. What is AI? It's going to be everything, everywhere, so embedded that we don't even notice it. It becomes the chorus, not the headline. And as it becomes not the chorus, we can really turn our back into where are we driving innovation? Let's move from efficiency, let's move from cost savings, and let's move into innovation. And with that, let's pass it back to Ali.
Thank you so much, Bridget, Bob. That's like such an excellent segue into the next talk that we've got, because Henry's going to talk to us about how we create or ignite creativity using AI. So moving away from just cost cutting and actually how we can drive real creative innovation. So over to Henry.
All right, thank you and welcome. So this time it's going to be slightly different indeed. Oh, just a second, technical issue with my clicker. Hopefully you're going to work out this time. Yes, we're back. All right, so first thing we're going to do is look back at 2024. So 2024 was extremely eventful. It was a year where you could see AI everywhere from mainstream publications and kind of a small news, but it was really hard to miss. Maybe a few examples, but you have, among others, obviously, but Paris Saint-Germain, which is a pretty famous soccer or football club, depending on where you live, did use Gen AI for a campaign around their new season. You have Pink Floyd, which decided to award AI-generated movie for a contest around the 20 years of one of their albums. You have Spotify, which obviously helps you find music using AI, and then maybe kind of the center of the pop culture for quite a while now. The Simpsons had one episode redacted by AI this year. So yeah, once again, it's really difficult to go around it. And what's interesting is that we do see all of this converge into the same space. So digital and physical have been promised to coexist for quite a while. Now it seems like it's finally happening. Some of them, of course, struggled. So a lot of people had really high hopes for products like Humane, which is on the top right, or the Rabbit R1 on the bottom right as well. They didn't really work out so far, at least. But what's interesting is that people are already looking into AI to venture into the physical space and see how they could augment our lives and how could they be more present in a way which is not sitting behind a computer or behind a mobile. A few more examples which I think were interesting in 2024. On the right side, you have obviously Orion, so the glasses which have been announced by the Meta team. We have yet to try them and see where they go, but it's promising. You have things like Simulon on the bottom, which kind of enables you to run AAA VFX processes directly from your mobile, which is pretty amazing. So what you can see there has been done just on a mobile. Or this example on the left of someone who started tinkering and using an Apple Vision Pro or headsets, and then 3D models, which are digitally present, to actually augment their reality and start creating AI outputs behind. So there's so many ways we can mix that, but I think 2024 showed us that we were venturing into the physical space. Something else which is pretty important that creatives, and this is kind of going against everything which has been said around AI, killing creativity. Creatives took back control. And in 2024, we have seen countless examples of how people were leveraging the technology to do new things. So between people shooting at home on their mobile and then reusing those outputs to create something as with AI, to professionals using AI for their green key shooting and how they could predict how the lighting would happen, to a lot of, there's so many examples, it's insane. So that's exciting, and this is a good way to maybe lean into something else we have done this year. So our team did collaborate with Coca-Cola between January and March of this year on this project, among other projects. What was interesting is that it was a really short time frame, but the briefing was about using AI to create a short film and try to leverage as many techniques and generate techniques as we could do. And so we did build a first workflow, which is, as you can see, extremely custom, enabling us to start transitioning from having this initial material, which is 2D animated and drawn by a very real person, to that kind of a result, which is linked to a 3D kind of a stop motion feeling. And what's interesting is that when you go through a project like this, you have obviously a lot going on and the process is difficult. And so you go through a lot of R&D. But the result was this film, which is obviously a lot of work and a lot of also human retouching and typical VFX processes, but also leveraging so much AI to get into a place where people appreciated the movie and loved it. But also because the story was good behind. So it's not just the technology which is driving that. Something else which is maybe tied to that we did notice that the more control you want to have with Gen AI, and the more time you're going to spend using it. And this is something which is pretty well understood by our team, but a lot of partners and clients are asking like, hey, is it faster? Is it better? And sometimes it just takes a lot longer because you have to work with IP and you have to work with brands, and that's fine, but something to understand. Also in 2024, we have seen the Gen AI landscape was booming and evolved in a lot of different ways. That's an example of two short films we did direct for a major cosmetic brand, and leveraging AI for what it does best, but not for everything. So the point is to be smart about how we we use it, and this is exactly what Hollywood has been doing over the last few months. So last year we had strikes, and now they're starting to drink the Kool-Aid and get into that. With James Cameron joining the board of Stability.ai, which is one major player, or Runway striking a deal with Lionsgate, which is another major news in the space. Now, looking at what could be worth looking into for the future, not only 2025 but already happening right now, you have this fact that AI is now becoming quickly a creative partner. So, from little girls using some AI tools like Cursor to start coding, Claude, which now can control your computer, or ChatGPT, which is pretty straightforward, to glasses like these, enabling someone who's deaf, for example, to read what's being said around them, which is major progress and huge help for people who maybe didn't think of AI as a way to improve their lives. We also have seen AI being used as a virtual effects filter for reality. So people are shooting whatever is happening in their life and then running it through AI to change it. And what's interesting is that this is creating the start of the end of the shared reality we know. Like we watch the same thing, then we experience the same, where we start modifying reality to get to a different place. So what about 2025? For 2025, we do expect technologies to keep on converging. We've been promised the metaverse for quite a while now. Didn't happen, or people think it would never happen, but that's exactly what it was ready for, using AI, using 3D, using a lot of different things. And we're going to start superimposing digital and physical into the same space. So what to do next? I think the first thing to do is just get your hands dirty and get into it. That's the most important. But also maybe understand that we are already going down this curve where like things were magical, like 2 years ago, like when ChatGPT came out, people couldn't believe what it could do. And now we start already moving down and think that it's just normal and this is just a part of day-to-day. So maybe as a conclusion, enjoy this moment. It's not going to last long. It's just going to be another tool in the future, and it's just going to be another part of your day. But for the time being, it's great and it's new. And so, yeah, enjoy this. Thank you, and back to LA.
Thank you so much, Henry. It's genuinely mind-blowing just how quickly things are moving in this space, and thank you so much for taking us through it. Moving on to maybe the only space that moves quicker, which is the TikTok FYP. So we're going to hear from Claire about how we're creating space for brands in trending topics.
Very demure, very mindful.
Awesome. Thanks, Allie. Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to be here to talk about digital culture, social culture, and how we're going to claim space amongst the wild world of trending topics. So let's get into it and start with the provocative statement. We love our brands, but brands actually don't create culture. The people do. Don't panic. Before we all quit our jobs, let's talk about what this means and how what involvement brands do have in trending digital social culture. Year on year, just to zoom out, traditional advertising viewing figures have dropped. The medium itself has gotten more global, more universal, and as a result, safer, a little less culturally relevant as a result of that scale. And we would argue maybe a little bit boring. Sorry to all of our TVC advertisers out there. Social has now become the true home of entertainment that arguably advertising once was. There are 5 billion people's eyeballs chronically online, including my own. And digital online culture is now quickly becoming sort of the center point of mainstream culture. So sort of social out versus TVC down. And so we'll talk about a little bit of what that means, what the implication is. Largely, this is due to social trends. People and users of social platforms are feeling increasingly able to participate, feel more visible. It provides everybody a platform to express themselves and add commentary to the world around them and just be the main character of their own lives. And so just to give you a sneak peek behind the curtain here at DEPT, this is one of our creatives' iPhone notes apps of basically trying to keep track of the wild world of trending topics in 2024. So the list is long and ongoing. This is a full-time sort of endeavor to keep on top of. And brands know this and are following suit. They're keen to be part of the conversation, earn the eyeballs, build their own relevance by jumping onto trends, but we'd argue with mixed levels of success. So let's kind of break that down. Trends often start cute, like our beloved corn kid. If you're not familiar, it's a good one to look up. And quickly then sort of the UGC community, the organic social community comes in, creates their memes, creates conversation, really picks it up and runs with it in many different and hilarious ways. Which inevitably will get celebrity and traditional media coverage. They're on the talk shows. We see them on the Today Show, and it sort of is that social out engine taking hold. And last but not least, our beloved brands come in and move the trend into cringe territory, especially when a social trends move into some above the line advertising without sort of a fine-tooth comb on it. So we'd say in 2024, brands have been really trying to chase the trend algorithm faster and faster. And we sort of see this like suffocation of trends becoming part of the culture. The life cycle of trends is much faster and is moving at just exponential speed. Some brands, it makes sense to sort of jump on these things, and some feels a little silly and potentially just too surface level to really participate in a meaningful way. Successful brands on social are doing something much different in which they're sort of creating their own universes, or as we like to call them, social cosms. So what does this mean apart from sounding really nice and fancy in a trends deck like this? So let's break it down. First things first is the brands that are really successful in social know who they are and they stay true to it. Like the example of Ryanair. They're cheap. What else do you expect from them? It's really permeates every single thing that they do and is like that red thread through all their social content and conversation, and any trends that are related to this makes sense for them to jump on because this is so consistent. Or they built a community around themselves, like Stanley Cup, who have built this cult fandom around this old product that's been reinvented with the right audience. And this is really thanks in part to the creator partnerships that they've developed, who make it their own, add their own accessories, have their own Stanley collection. And it's a thing that has really catapulted this brand to great success. There's so many great examples, but I think some of the things that we like to think about are brands that don't hard sell or try too hard. They own their faults and weaknesses, and they're very transparent in that way. They get out of their own way, and they don't let sort of corporate dictate what their brand looks and feels like in social. They let social do its thing and kind of try something new in this space. So what does that mean for 2025? We expect these things to continue, but some actionable takeaways you can take forward in your own strategies. The first thing is don't try to be a tax app and be Nutter Butter. If you haven't seen what Nutter Butter is doing on TikTok, I highly recommend you go and check it out. It's quite unhinged, but exciting. So we are advising all of our clients always to sort of look in the mirror and be honest about what do people need from you and how are you going to give it to them? Is it product demonstration or one-on-one videos? Is it entertainment and a laugh in the newsfeed? How are you going to be adding value to the newsfeed for your audience? The second is brands finding their own people, thinking about long-term partnerships and really kind of cult followings and building that from the ground up. Creator partnerships are a great place to start, especially finding the right cast of creators who represent your brand and have sort of the freedom to really help make it their own. It will feel less try hard and more consistent and direct if you find these right partners who can help translate your brand into a social context. We're also seeing more sort of hybrid approaches to working with in-house teams, agency teams, external creator talent, the brands who are sort of trying out new models and ways of coming up with ideas for social are seeing great success. So think about how you can seamlessly integrate all these different brain spaces and power to do something really unique and special for your brand. And lastly, there's really no strategy in the world that's going to guarantee you success in social, no matter how much data or impact or information you have. Ultimately, it's less strategy and more risk, and that might mean more failure, but the faster you learn, the faster you can find the sweet spot that will work for your brand and your audience. So in summary, back to our provocative statement, we really don't believe that brands can create culture just on their own, but the brands that are behaving like their audiences or like people do in a social context can. And that's what we are excited to see happen in 2025. Back to you, Allie.
Thank you so much, Claire. I feel like slightly less guilty for my screen time because I actually got every single reference in your presentation. So that was fun. And kind of moving beyond how we build brands and social and how we drive culture with our brands, we then move on to commerce. So actually, how do we move that into actually driving sales for our different brands that we work with? And Sam is going to talk to us a little bit about what we see as the future of commerce.
Thanks to TikTok, Stanley's revenue jumped to $750 million.
It's better than an actual concert.
Alchemy, it's finally complete.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for taking the time. I hope for all you retailers out there, I hope you had a very successful Singles' Day. I hope you're prepared for Black Friday, Cyber 10, and then in general, very successful Q4. You know, I've been doing these talks for quite a while now, and every year I seem to have a slide around how much media is changing, and 2024 is no different. A very smart person once told me that the pace of change is as slow as it'll ever be right now. And certainly we've seen that over the last 5 to 10 years, where the pace of change continues to accelerate. And certainly that is incredibly true with media. We're seeing macro trends like convergence, the traditional boundaries between brand and performance continue to erode. We're seeing the proliferation of channels as the journey gets disintermediated. We're seeing consumption patterns continue to change and evolve as the tech and media platforms continue to evolve. All in all, it's an incredibly exciting time to be in media. But the one place where I think we're really seeing the biggest amount of change is in the relationship between media and commerce and retail. And the first place where that's really being impacted is through social media. And I think one of the most interesting things for me is that social media has made an incredible shift where it was about connecting with friends, posting ephemeral content, sharing and connecting. It's now become, as Claire said, a more of an entertainment platform. They're algorithmically driven, and they're serving up content from everywhere around the world to people. And that's changed the relationship that consumers have with these sites. 40% of teens trust search on TikTok and Instagram more than they do on traditional search sites, and that is changing the way that the relationship we have with those sites, and it's giving a great deal of power to creators. Everyone has seen the Logan cucumber salad video. Cucumbers in Finland sold out. I'm having conversations with my sisters and my mom if cucumber salad is suitable for Thanksgiving dinner. It certainly has taken the world by storm. By the way, it's not, in my opinion. It's great for lunch, but not for Thanksgiving. Claire also mentioned Stanley Cup. That's a really fantastic example where a company went from $75 million in sales to $750 million in sales almost overnight due to the power of social and the ability to impact sales in real time. And you're starting to see retailers are really leaning into this. We're seeing Amazon lean into this. We're seeing all the sites lean into this, and creators have now become the new marketplace. We're seeing the ability to drive zero-click sales directly through a creator is happening more and more, and that disintermediation of the traditional retail process is changing faster and faster and faster. And a lot of that is due to the changing relationship between culture and technology. It's really easy for us to go and focus on Gen Z and look at all the behaviors of Gen Z and how that's changing the world, and for brands to sort of chase both technology and Gen Z. But it doesn't just end there. We have to think about how this is changing culture as a whole, and how as brands we can find a place for us to participate in that, how we can start to rise to meet the changing expectations of consumers. As culture and as technology get closer and closer together, the expectations we have as consumers are starting to change more and more. We want to see more personalized experiences. We're more willing to share the data that we have with brands and with creators, so that we can get more relevant recommendations from those creators or from the brands that participate in them. But as we strive to make these more relevant connections, we have to think about the demographics at play here. And we live in the most diverse time in history, where we live in a truly global economy where people from different cultures and backgrounds are coming together. If we look at what's happening in the world today, Gen Z and millennials will control almost 90% of disposable income in developed countries. That's an incredibly powerful stat, just knowing how much money that is. But it's also really important to know that Gen Z and millennials are very different. I don't know how many BuzzFeed articles I've read about the wars between Gen Z, whether it's about the types of socks you wear or the types of pants you wear or how you tuck your shirts. These are very different generations, and we have to think about them as very, very different people. And that doesn't count for older generations. Almost 30% of developed nations will be over 55. We are certainly an aging population, and understanding how those aging populations are changing their retail habits is incredibly important for brands to consider. I think the important point here is just to know that just because they're on the older age spectrum, they're not that different, because they are looking towards Gen Z to help guide how they're interacting with brands. They're leaning into these platforms just as much as millennials and other younger generations. They're the fastest growing segment on TikTok, to the fastest growing segment in social media. They have the same expectations from a personalization perspective. They just might have different habits when they start to think about how they're actually purchasing products. They enjoy going to a store. They want to see and feel something before they buy it. But they're still encountering brands in the same way. And that really starts to change how we have to think about service and experience. When we start to think about what historically has been how we're servicing these individuals, and changing that from into an overarching experience, and really bringing those two things together in media, and really starting to move from a world where it's been one to many to one, where we're starting to think about how we're selling brands and products to all people, to how we're building seamless experiences designed to take an individual from not knowing about a brand to buying and using that brand in a zero-click environment. And there's a couple of examples of some brands where we think we've done an interesting job starting to build into this. One is Rituals. Rituals is a home and personal care brand. They literally have thousands and thousands of products. And when you think about the rituals that people build around the personal products they use, their cosmetic routines, their nighttime routines, they're incredibly rigid. And so getting someone to try a new product is incredibly difficult. We were able to work with Rituals to create a database of all their first-party data, combine that with some media data to really start to understand what is the best next product to introduce to these individuals, test that in real time, and then start to surface that in the store. So when they show up in the store, they're seeing products that they're most likely to buy. when they're in media. So when as they're moving through media, they're seeing these products show up in their feed. And yes, this had a fundamental impact on the bottom line for Rituals, but it also transformed the relationship that they had with their clients. Another great example is Amoda. This is one we all know that as retailers, returns are a huge lift on the business. It drives a lot of cost. And we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to reduce returns. We took a similar process. We were able to build an algorithm that was able to identify the people most likely to return and the products they are most likely to return. So we're able to then suppress those audiences from a media perspective and highlight the products that have a lower likelihood to return. And again, we started to see immediate and tangible impact on the bottom line, but also a changed relationship with their consumers. We're now recommending products that they're more likely to enjoy. And so this movement towards a more seamless experience where we're using data in ways is incredibly important. But as we look to 2025, there's three big things that we think are super important to have a successful media and retail season. The first is to leverage new marketplaces. You know, it's very important. It's often difficult for brands to give up control on the overarching of the retail experience. You know, we want to typically control that as much as we can, but we have to hand over control, lean into alternative marketplaces, but not give up our data, retain the data as much as we can, because the other big thing for us is preparing for algorithms. You know, we're moving into a zero-click world where AI agents will be buying products for AI agents. As we're building media plans now, we're not just thinking about audiences, we're thinking about how we unlock algorithms. The amount of data that we have helps us to unlock those algorithms faster and drive results sooner and make sure that we're getting the right products to the right people. And the last thing is to just go bananas on transforming the overall shopping experience. You know, I think, omni-channel is here to stay, but so is zero click. And we have to start to rethink how we're using our digital experiences, how we're using our in-store experiences. How do we evolve them beyond just a place where people go to make returns? How do we create community around those? How do we create special events that reflect the need of our individual demographics and audiences? And I think if we can start to do this, we'll have a fantastic 2025, and that pace of change will continue to accelerate as it does every year.
Thank you so much, Sam. And you made a really good point at the beginning that I think, are bang smack in the middle of Singles Day and Black Friday. So we are literally at the peak of peak. So thank you to any retailers that are joining the call today. One of the key trends which we have heard in lots of our speakers' talks today is how quickly things are moving, so speed. And in today's last talk, we're going to be talking about how we can balance that speed and that need to be agile with making sure that we're also being ethical in our decisions. So to cover that topic, I'm handing over to John.
I don't think we understand how fast technology is changing us.
What would it mean to align our tech to our values? And it's only a few good decisions away.
All right. Thank you very much, Ali. I'm John, and I'm going to be talking to you guys about ethical practices in agile organizations. And I think, as Ali pointed out, and what you've heard from all of our speakers today, is a common tension across advancing and doing things faster and responding to culture and needs across businesses, and then doing the right thing. And I think there's a great old quote around this, that ethics is knowing the difference between what you have a right to do and what is right to do. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we're seeing that as it is manifest in agile organizations or organizations that practice agile methods. And I'll just start by hitting on two things that we're seeing or have seen this year
around this phenomena. The first is something I think we all heard several years ago of moving fast and breaking things, to basically try to innovate at pace and not worry so much about the implications of our actions. And I think it's safe to say this past year, with the range of incidents, that kind of came full circle. And I'm not so sure that that's still in vogue on how we want to approach that. The second area is all about accuracy enabling honesty. And my colleague Yash, who spoke earlier today on our other live stream, had mentioned, we often get questions about, well, AI isn't that honest. Well, no, it's about accuracy. And that's the thing that I think as we look at how we want to promote ethics in a lot of our practices, we want to think about. And so these were two things we saw manifest this past year. In a variety of ways. One of the first is, I'm going to use a big company here because big companies often carry the heaviest burden. In this case, it's Microsoft, who I think in the launch in recent years of Copilot have really sought to hit a balance with the more aggressive scaling we're seeing from OpenAI in how they imbue ethical practices into the launching of their products. They launched Copilot at record speed, much faster than their other products. And I think the way they did that by putting AI initiatives for good and steps in place to ensure that what is shipped adheres to a common ethical framework, which I'll talk about again in a minute. Likewise, in recent years, we've seen that accuracy thing go awry. And I think a good example of that is another large company in IBM, who many of you may recall a few years ago, had some scandals around their facial recognition technology, that they had shipped that technology to closed circuit TV software platforms and such, and it was coming back with significantly biased results. And I think therein lies the tension of accuracy and having methods in place that allow you to move fast, but still be ethical and do the right thing. And so a lot of what you've heard from our speakers today are who are the folks out there that are not just doing the right thing, but perhaps leading. And so I thought I'd share just a few examples of folks out in the wild that are actually imbuing ethical practices into the way they ship products and services. And I'm going to use two industries that we think are pretty good beacons for it. One is the fashion sector, and the other is fast food or quick service. Why these two? Well, it's sort of obvious to all of us. We wear them and eat them, right? The burden of being ethical and honest and transparent is quite heavy for both of these industries. You can see that there's a lot of things that would warrant them having more ethical practices to begin with. They have groups that are constantly watching compliance and guidelines. We have stricter laws, faster turnaround times. They're highly visible. So there's a lot of reasons why both of these sectors give us some clues about where we're seeing working at speed, but also with an ethical grounding. A couple quick examples. The first one here is a company called Aerotech. They're a French-based technology company that they've been around for a few years, but we love them for kind of what they stand for and how they've aligned it to their business. And that is, they basically are in a mode of predicting trends for the fashion industry. But what we really love about them is that they have a very transparent data collection model, and that their teams work in very simple formats to allow for more transparent sharing of information amongst themselves and with the brands that they advise on those same trends. So you see the ability to move at speed, the ability to move ahead of a trend literally is their business model, but the way in which they work has led them to be also more trustworthy amongst those brands that are engaging with them. Likewise, is an old favorite, a DEPT client, actually, Patagonia. These folks are the OGs of working both at speed and in an ethical, honest, transparent way. But while we've all seen their products on shelves and the sustainability initiatives that they've advanced, I think what's really interesting about Patagonia is they've managed to work at speed in responding to customer demand, to inventory needs, but they've matched that with a very consistent, rigorous sustainability process within their own team. So they're constantly looking at feedback coming from customers and building that into their agile methods, including how they work with their partners and suppliers. So the theme here is not just moving fast, but embedding the right thing and the right checks into their methods. And that's something that I think Patagonia has not only done well, but they've done it well at scale. A third example here is one that some of you may have tried. I'm still on the fence on whether I love the taste side of it, but the ambition of Impossible Foods can't be denied in that they're really seeking to scale a plant-based alternative to animal-based foods. But again, what's interesting with Impossible is that they're really focusing on kind of the last mile of integrity and ethics, where their ability to ensure what they ship out as a food services company, a food technology company, has to be clear, transparent, and accurate. And so what they've done is a lot of their suppliers, a lot of their frontline distribution channels are all based on, they use AI for their sorting and targeting, but what's really great is that they're imbuing that data back into their process to constantly ensure what's shipped and what's out in front of customers and being consumed by customers is accurate and what it says on the package. And so where are we going with all this? Well, there's a bit of a from to here that we're seeing over the next year and beyond. And I think, as you heard from some of my colleagues as well, we're really trying to go from a lot of this hype around automate everything and let's deploy AI to see how much faster we can get. That is true, but it's also about fairness and responsibility. And I think a lot of you as consumers, brand managers, retailers, what have you, we all are at a place, I think, at a tipping point of finding ways to ensure we don't get too far ahead of ourselves with this. And this idea of piloting and waiting and seeing is really going to transfer into more ethical tech frameworks, some of the stuff I mentioned earlier that Microsoft and others are doing. So a couple things that you can just basically practice on your own with your teams. Maybe you're working on agile software production and development. Maybe you're just simply trying to work faster and better within your teams, not even touching technology. I think we can all embed ethics into our feedback loops, into the decision points that we make around whether we ship something, whether we launch something or not. Those are simple steps that don't require advanced training and a lot of investment, but do require an awareness and a commitment to doing so, as I've mentioned with some of the brands earlier. The second thing is really just empowering teams to make ethical decisions. It's one thing to say you want to be sustainable and ethical in what you do. It's another thing to push that down to teams to ensure they can make those calls quickly. That's part of being fast. And that is something that I think every team can start to adopt into next year. And then lastly, measuring things. We have a lot we'll see with our clients around KPIs and measuring outcomes. But what if we started to put ethical KPIs into our review cycles, into the way we look and model our business? Those are the sorts of things, again, they don't cost us much other than the time and the commitment to do so. And so with that, I will hand it back over to Ali.
Thank you so much for closing us out, John. That was a great way to end today's event. And we are at the end. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned a fair bit. We only had an hour, so we couldn't cover everything. But there is the 2025 DEPT Trends report, which dropped earlier today, which is available. So please download it and have a read through, because again, I feel like we only scratched the surface of everything we wanted to cover. But to close us out, a huge thank you for your time and your attention, and have a lovely rest of your day, morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Thank you.